So I think it's safe to say that the next gen car isn't exactly a popular race car amongst NASCAR fans. I mean, just look at Jeff Gluck's Was It a Good Race poll for Watkins Glen this past week, and you'll see the main reason why a lot of people didn't like the race at Watkins Glen was because of the next gen car and its issues. And whether it's super speedways, short tracks, or road courses, let's just say that the next gen leaves a lot to be desired in terms of a racing product that isn't at a worn out mile and a half like a Kansas or Charlotte. Despite these shortcomings of this car, it seems like there's a trend throughout NASCAR media, or more specifically NASCAR-owned media, where our criticisms and our displeasures as fans with this car is kind of being pushed off to the side, and we're just being told that we're over-exaggerating and that everything is fine and that we just need to stop complaining. Now, as someone who has criticized NASCAR fans in the past about overly complaining or about not knowing what they want, this isn't one of those cases because the car genuinely has problems. So when industry members come out and they say that our problems are just, we're over exaggerating and that we just need to relax, it makes us feel like there's kind of a barrier between us and the industry itself. And what exactly am I referring to here? Well, I'm mainly talking about the comments that were made by Kyle Petty and Corey LaJoie over the part of 2 to 3 days. I'm recording this on Tuesday afternoon, by the way. Now, I do have a lot of respect for Kyle Petty and Corey LaJoie. These are two guys who have accomplished a lot in the sport, whether it was on track or off track, on the media side or behind the wheel. These are two guys that earned their place in the sport and deserve to have respect. But just because I respect them, that doesn't mean I have to agree with them. And you're going to see throughout this episode, I definitely don't agree with what Kyle Petty and Corey LaJoie either said or possibly tried to imply. So that's what we're going to go over in today's video. I'm going to dissect Kyle Petty and Corey LaJoie's comments, whether it's on the car or other things in the sport, and we're just going to have a little bit of fun with that along the way, as we do with pretty much every episode. So without any further ado, let's dive right in. Alright, I want to first talk about Corey LaJoie's comment here, and it's really more of a reply and a question rather than just a statement. So that's why I want to go over his first. So he's replying to Jeff Gluck's Was It a Good Race response, or Was It a Good Race poll response to Watkins Glen. 28%, 41 out of 42nd in terms of one of the lowest road course races ever on the poll. It was bad, it was good, blah, blah, blah. So Corey LaJoie actually comments here underneath the tweet, and he says, "Serious inquiry. Have you ever done a study of how the percentage score correlates to where Chase Elliott finishes?" Now, funny enough, or I guess lucky enough, someone actually did that. Someone actually, at least for the 2025 season, did a correlation on the Was It a Good Race poll and, whether it was a good or bad race and where Chase Elliott finished. So we're actually going to dive deep into that, and there's two of them, and we're going to go over both of them, but the first one we're going to go over is just a straight up where it correlates to where Chase Elliott finishes versus how good the race was. So we can see the graph right here where it's kind of, let's just say, all over the place here. Some of the highest, like a 90.5% with Chase Elliott won in Atlanta, or third place, it got a 73%, or when Chase Elliott had his worst run of the season, 26 at Watkins Glen, it was a 28%. So on paper, there are some correlations to what Corey LaJoie is maybe trying to imply, and I'll get into what he's maybe trying to imply in just a little bit, but there are still some correlations that just don't really make any sense. Like Bristol, Chase Elliott finished 15th. That was one of his worst finishes of the season, but obviously 20th, 18th, 16th, and 26th. It is his, 5th worst finish of the season? And that race is the worst so far at 20.1%. Case in point, when he finished 5th at Talladega, it got a 39%. And we'll just look at a few more here. Obviously, the Atlanta one, it got a high score. Or even, I'll count Charlotte as well. Look, 6th place got a 90.2%, which is okay, but you'd think that if Chase Elliott was in the top 5, maybe it should be a 90%. Or even here, where he finished 15th at Michigan, it got a 92.2%. So that is the first graphic that we're going to look at. Now we're going to look at the second graphic. So the second graphic here, Corey LaJoie asked the fan who made the graph, he said, can you change the finishing position line so a win is 100% on the x-axis and last is 0%? And there you look at it again right here, just, spices it up a little bit more, but overall it's mostly the same thing in terms of where he finishes and was it a good race pull. Here's my problem with Corey LaJoie's question or statement or whatever. I get it's just a question, and that's why I'm going to treat this as a question, because I'm not going to fully assume what Corey LaJoie is trying to imply here. But I am going to do a little bit of digging into it. This question from Corey LaJoie feels like it's trying to change the direction of from the next gen being a bad car to, oh, Chase Elliott had a bad day and therefore the race was terrible. But if we look at the graphic again, there are plenty of examples when Chase Elliott finished top 5 or top 10 and the pole was still in the 70s, in the 60s, or even like in the 20s, or vice versa, where Chase Elliott would have a bad run. He'd finish outside the top 10, but races would still be in the 90s. So there's a little bit of correlation. Like Atlanta has one of the highest scores. Of course, Chase Elliott won, but that's more in fact because I think everyone could just agree that Atlanta was just a good race. Case in point with Watkins Glen. I think everyone could just agree that Watkins Glen wasn't a very good race. Or Michigan, for example. Chase finished 15th. That was one of the best races of the year. In my opinion, it has been the best race of the year. And he finished 15th. So where's the correlation? And again, Corey LaJoie probably just maybe wanted to know what the correlation is because, again, Chase Elliott is a very popular driver. And when Chase Elliott does well, we know NASCAR fans, they can tend to sway their opinion on a race or not, whether it depends on who wins the race or who has a good run, for example. I don't know if that's the case here with the next gen and with Chase Elliott. Again, he got that one win at Atlanta. And again, in my opinion, that was the best race of the year. But I can at least speak for me. I didn't like Atlanta because Chase Elliott won. I was honestly rooting for Alex Bowman more so than Chase Elliott. But whether Bowman won or whether Chase won, I still thought that was one of the best races of the year, regardless of the winner. And frankly, I think a lot of fans think that as well. I mean, I have a friend, NASCAR Opinion, he's a Chase Elliott fan, and he doesn't let that dictate him. So I have a Chase Elliott fan that I could call right now, and I can ask him, hey, did Chase Elliott's bad finish affect whether you thought Watkins Glen was a good race or not? And he's going to say no. And whether Corey LaJoie is, again, just asking a question or he's trying to imply something a little bit deeper, the issue here is the context. I'll go again, use my buddy NASCAR Opinion as an example. He put out a tweet earlier, just a few days ago, where it was Joey Logano's finishing position at Watkins Glen, and he just put champion. I know what he's trying to imply. He's trying to imply the fact that Joey Logano is not really a deserving champion, even though he won the championship last year, but because of a bad playoff format. And he's just put champion because, oh wow, look at your champion. He's finishing 14th. The problem is the context is really bad because he's just making it seem like, oh, a champion can't finish 14th nowadays, even though he claims Chase Elliott is a championship contender and he finishes 14th more times than not. Again, I'll show the poll just to show, I'll show the graph just to show you as proof. That's the problem with this question. It comes off as Corey LaJoie is trying to deviate the conversation from a bad car to, oh, the most popular driver in the sport didn't win or didn't run well, and therefore people are upset. I don't know if that's what he meant or not. Again, Corey LaJoie, if you ever decide to watch this for whatever reason, let me know. Am I right or am I wrong? Again, I don't want to assume anything, but that's just what I could say, what it comes across as. And it kind of goes back to what I said before, where because it comes across like that, and he's got the Stacking Pennies podcast that's on NASCAR's official YouTube page, so he is NASCAR-owned media to an extent. It just is not a good look. It's like an example of NASCAR-owned media feeling disconnected and trying to deviate the conversation from one thing or another and trying to push fans' criticisms off to the side. I don't know if that's what Corey LaJoie, again, was trying to imply here or not, because, again, it's just a question. Only he knows that. But from what it comes across at and maybe just the poor context to it, it's just not a good look. All right, admittedly, I went a little easy on Corey LaJoie, and again, that's mostly due to the fact that he was asking a question rather than making a direct statement. You know who did make a direct statement, however? Kyle Petty, and that's exactly who we're going to dive into right now. So, like I mentioned before, with Corey LaJoie and Kyle Petty, I have a ton of respect for these two, but just because I respect you, that doesn't mean I have to agree with you, and we're going to see right here, I definitely don't agree with what Kyle Petty's saying right here. So, Kyle Petty was on PRN, and he was referring to Dale Jr.'s criticisms of the next-gen car. And you can look at the clip right here, or you can look at the Daily Downforce article, which kind of summarizes it. I'll put both of the clip here, and I'll put the article in the description below, but I'll play the clip right now so you guys can see what I'm referring to.
This car jumped leap years ahead. We had one of our prominent members of the NASCAR community, Dale Jr., criticized the next-gen car the other day. And I don't think that criticism is deserved in a lot of ways. We have not raced stock cars since about 1958. We don't race stock cars. We race NASCARs. This is the NASCAR car that we have today. People complained in the 70s when they went to tubular chassis. They complained when we went to radial tires. They've complained all along as the progression of the cars. We were still racing cars with carburetors when you couldn't go to your local auto parts store and buy a carburetor. It was an antiquated car that we were racing, and people seemed to want to have that antiquated car. This car jumped leap years ahead. We have to adjust to it. This is the racing we have. Embrace it, enjoy it. We're seeing some spectacular stuff on the racetrack, and I think it's only going to get better.
Where do I begin? Now, I guess I'll start with the beginning of the video, which honestly took up about half of the length of this short 53-second clip, where it seems like Kyle Petty is kind of going after the NASCAR hasn't been stock since the 70s. You know, they were complaining about, we did this, we did that, we did this, and really summarizing it, it seems like Kyle Petty is going after the technology aspect of the sport, and saying that you shouldn't be complaining about the technology of NASCAR because technology is always going to evolve. I would like to say that that's not what fans are complaining about, but there has been some discussion, at least in the past few weeks, about how the technology hasn't been good for the next-gen car in the sport. Whether it's the bigger brakes, or whether it's the rear view camera, or the fact that everyone has SMT data. That is a factor that has been an issue that has been brought up. So I'm going to give Kyle Petty a little bit of credit here. He's correct in that statement. Technology is always going to evolve. It's just the foundation of motorsports. Part of it is technology. If we didn't have technology in motorsports, we might as well just put these guys at our local K1 speed and then call that the NASCAR Cup Series, because there'd be no difference. So I agree with him on that statement. Technology is going to evolve. The problem is, Kyle Petty is basically deferring the conversation from the next gen just sucks at tracks to, oh, you guys just don't like the car because it's technologically advanced, when that is not why. Kyle, it doesn't matter if these cars are bricks to bone. There is no technology whatsoever on these cars. If the product still sucks, then we're going to complain about it. It doesn't matter if the technology is up to standard, if it's advanced technology, if these are hover cars, for crying out loud. If the product sucks, then the product just sucks. Watkins Glen was not good. Iowa was not good. Indianapolis was not good. Now, granted, I'm of the opinion that Indianapolis will never be good, but go watch my Brickyard video if you want to know my full reasoning for that. But again, besides worn out mile and a halves, the next gen hasn't been good. Daytona, not good. Talladega, not good. Charlotte, well, I just said Charlotte was good, but the Roval, not good. Road courses, super speedway, short tracks, they're not good with this car. And we're not talking about the technology. Frankly, we just talk about the dirty air. We talk about how the dirty air is that bad. The fact that dirty air plays such a factor at road courses and short tracks is a pretty big problem, if you ask me. But it's not because of the technology. Frankly, I don't think fans care about what technology goes into the cars. They just care about, is the on-track product good? Can a car follow behind another car? Can a car pass another car? Can the car go vroom, for lack of a better term? But we don't care about the technology. Frankly, us Regular racing fans don't care about the technology. Maybe guys who are more into the engineering side of the sport and things like that, they probably care about the technology, but the majority of fans don't care about the technology. For example, did you guys know that the next gen car is independent suspension or like rear suspension or something like that? You probably didn't until I told you, but there you go. And that's what I'm saying. We don't care about the technology. We just want a good product. It has nothing to do with the fact that, oh, it's not a stock car. We know that. We have eyes. We can see that. What car on the street looks like the next gen car? I give you an answer. None of them do. We understand that. But when, again, the problem is deviating the conversation from just a bad car to, oh, you guys just don't like it just because it's not fully stock. That's not true. Not at all. Just go to the community and ask them, and they will tell you that's the case. But the end of the clip here is something that I really want to dive into, and I'll just play that final section really quick here.
We have to adjust to it. This is the racing we have. Embrace it, enjoy it. We're seeing some spectacular stuff on the racetrack, and I think it's only going to get better.
This is my biggest problem with a lot of NASCAR-owned media. Embrace it. Own it. This is just what we got. Kyle is basically telling fans, shut up and enjoy. And that is one of the worst things anyone representing not just NASCAR-owned media, but any sports media can say. Imagine if the NFL Network came out with fans complaining that we have too much offense and not enough defense. The defense can't even sniff the quarterback without getting a penalty. And they just said, shut up and enjoy it. Do you think that would go well for them? No. And that's why they don't do that. But that's okay in NASCAR media. And that's not even the fullest extent. We talked about the Daniel Trotta and Larry Mack versus Mark Mart conversation that happened a couple weeks ago. It's kind of the same thing here. It's just trying to discredit a different opinion, trying to discredit a criticism that we have. To just say that we should just embrace it and basically just shut up is a horrible thing to say from someone representing, might I add, the sport of NASCAR. You're on PRN. You are someone who works in NASCAR media, whether it's with the networks or with NASCAR themselves. You represent NASCAR through NASCAR media. So when a representative of the sport comes out and basically tells fans to shut up and stop complaining, that is not something that you want to tell your fans. That is a horrible, horrible look. Like, for example, I'm currently 1 semester away from getting my master's in global strategic communications, which is another fancy way of saying PR. And from what I've learned so far, one thing you definitely don't want to do is you don't want to come out like you're on the high horse. One reason I haven't really mentioned like Elton Sawyer or Steve O'Donnell or some guys like that is because they do a better job, frankly, at defending themselves or defending the product than what Kyle Petty does right now. Because at least they make an attempt to acknowledge that they can improve. You know, when Elton Sawyer comes out and says that we think we have a good product, but there's always room for improvement, that's what you're supposed to say if you're a representative. You're never going to hear a NASCAR media member or a NASCAR representative come out and say that the product is bad. That's just never going to happen, not just in NASCAR, but in anything. You're never going to hear a representative say what we did was bad unless it was just genuinely objectively bad. So the best thing you can do is you can say that we like what we have, we think it's good, but we can always improve. Like with the horsepower, they say that, yeah, we could probably improve a little bit on the horsepower. It's adding opportunities. They're just saying that there's opportunities on the table. That's what you're supposed to say as a representative. You're not supposed to tell the fans, shut up and deal with it. That is horrible. And as for the spectacular that Kyle Petty's talking about, I'm assuming he's referring to the 1.5 miles like Kansas, like Charlotte, like Las Vegas. But again, other than that, and those are races that are going away as the schedule continues to evolve, and we add more short tracks, we add more road courses, we add more super speedways, you know, the car's weakness, the spectacular, disappears more and more and more. So I'm not one of those people that say that, oh, what spectacular are you talking about? Because again, just look at the Coke 600, look in Atlanta. The next gen has produced some phenomenal moments. I'm not going to be one of those people who act like the next gen is a 100% failure, because objectively, it's not. But majority-wise, with the tracks that we got, it is a failure. So to basically say that, hey, you guys are upset, you guys are angry, you guys just want a better racing product, shut up and just deal with what we got. Does that sound good to you? Because that doesn't sound good to me at all. So, in conclusion, this is my biggest problem with NASCAR-owned media. It's the idea of just pushing off to the side. It's the idea of ignoring the fans' complaints and kind of acting like the fans are either stupid or the fans are the bad guys in the first place. At the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We just want a good product and we want fun action. You think the fans want to complain 24/7? Actually, thinking about that, they probably do more times than not. But a lot of fans, I could say, don't want to complain 24/7. I know I don't want to complain 24/7, but when the product is constantly under-delivering, what do you expect me to do as a reaction? I can't just keep my mouth shut because I've watched this sport for over 20 years of my life. I just can't naturally. I mean, if I did shut up, that'd be the day I stopped becoming a NASCAR fan. So when the media kind of pushes our concerns and our thoughts to the side, it just furthers the disconnect and it just makes us more mad and more angry, and it's doing the exact opposite of what they want us to do, which is at the end of the day just shutting up and enjoying with what we got. But when you basically spit in our face, more or less, you're not going to get the response that you think you're going to get. So I don't know what to tell you. It's a bad look. Again, Corey LaJoie, I'm not going to go too hard on him because again, his was more of a question and just trying to more or less figure something out, even though the context may not necessarily be the best. But Kyle Petty, I don't know what you were thinking with that one, bud. But that's what I have to say. What do you guys have to say? Let me know in the comment section below. Did I hit it on the head? Am I completely off the mark? Let me know in the comment section below. And while you're at it, guys, please like this video and subscribe to the Daily Downforce YouTube channel. That helps me out a ton. Check out dailydownforce.com for all sorts of great content over there. But that's going to do it for me, folks. I'm going to wave the checkered flag. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will see you in the next video.